the only exercises you need to strengthen your glutes at home based on science. Have you ever heard of dormant glute syndrome? It basically happens when your glute muscles become so deactivated that other structures like the lower back and the knees take over work that isn't theirs to do. That is why so many people feel back pain when walking, lose stability on stairs, or feel weak knees for no apparent reason. A 2024 study published in PLOS One showed that increasing hip abductor strength, linked to the gluteus medius, reduced the risk of falls in older adults by up to 86%. That is why today you will see the only glute exercises you truly need based on science. And the best part, you do not need to do all of them. Watch each one, understand the reason behind it, and choose the ones that fit your routine. Doing 2 or 3 of them consistently will already bring you great results in a short amount of time. Before we get started, please leave a comment with your name and the city you are watching from. We would love to know. Exercise number 1, step up. The step up is one of the most functional movements out there because it reproduces exactly the pattern of climbing stairs, something you do every day without realizing how much it activates your glute muscles. Think of it as resistance training disguised as a daily task, where every step up a staircase becomes, without you even noticing, a real stimulus for your glutes to work. The beauty of this exercise lies in its ability to work each leg independently, correcting strength imbalances between both sides of the body, something that bilateral exercises like the traditional squat cannot do with the same efficiency. Here's something most people do not know. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and even so, it is one of the most neglected muscles in training, especially among men, who tend to focus almost all of their attention on chest, back, and arms. This hurts not only aesthetics but also performance in other exercises and even everyday posture. To perform the step up correctly, place one foot completely on top of a bench, box, or sturdy step, at a height where your knee is close to 90 degrees when your foot is resting on it. Push your body up using mainly the heel of the leg that is on the step, avoiding any push off from the leg still on the ground. At the top of the movement, fully extend your hip, squeezing the glute, and then come back down with control until your back leg lightly touches the ground. An extra tip to maximize results is to pause for 1 second at the top of the movement, consciously squeezing the glute before coming down. This increases time under tension and improves muscle recruitment in the area. A common mistake is using a step that is too high, which causes the person to compensate with a push from the grounded leg, taking the focus away from the glute and overloading the knee. Another mistake is not stabilizing the core during the movement, letting the torso sway from side to side. 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions per side are recommended, adjusting the step height according to your progress and hip mobility. If you have recent knee injuries, ankle instability, or serious balance issues, speak with a professional before including this exercise, and if necessary, hold onto a fixed surface during the movement for added safety. Exercise number 2, fire hydrant. The fire hydrant got its name because it resembles the posture of a dog lifting its leg. And yes, the name is not the most elegant in the world, but do not let that fool you, because the results in the lateral glutes are very real. Unlike the glute bridge and the squat, which mainly work the gluteus maximus, this exercise focuses on the gluteus medius, the muscle responsible for stabilizing the hip laterally every time you take a step, climb a stair, or stand on one leg. When this muscle is weak, the hip tends to drop to the side during walking, overloading the knee and the lower back over time. It is as if you had 2 pillars supporting your body with every step, and when one of them weakens, the extra weight always ends up falling on the other side. To perform the exercise, rest on your hands and knees, keeping your spine in a neutral position and your core lightly engaged. Lift one leg out to the side, keeping the knee bent throughout the entire movement until the thigh is roughly parallel to the floor. Then return with control, without letting the knee touch the ground between repetitions, to keep constant tension on the gluteus medius. Remember that movement quality matters more than range of motion. An extra tip is to imagine you are pushing the ceiling with the outer side of your knee, which helps keep the movement in the correct plane and prevents compensations. A common mistake is rotating the hip upward along with the leg, which removes tension from the gluteus medius and transfers the work to the lower back. Another frequent mistake is using momentum instead of control, performing the movement too quickly in order to complete more repetitions. 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions per side are recommended, always prioritizing controlled execution. People with hip bursitis, active knee pain when bearing weight, or recent wrist injuries should avoid the hand-supported position and may substitute with a resistance band exercise performed standing, seeking professional guidance if necessary. Exercise number 3, glute bridge. The glute bridge is usually the first exercise anyone learns when they start training this region. and for good reason. It teaches the body to recruit the gluteus maximus in an isolated way without relying as much on the quadriceps or the lower back, which tend to take over in other movements. What many people do not know is that the glutes have a function that goes far beyond aesthetics. They are one of the main muscles responsible for pelvic stabilization, and when they are weak, other structures like the lower back end up taking over that job, which is directly related to increased back pain in people who spend a lot of time sitting. Electromyography research consistently points to the glute bridge as one of the exercises with the highest gluteus maximus activation, especially when performed with good technique and a pause at the top of the movement. To perform the exercise, lie on your back with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor, close to your glutes and hip width apart. Push your hips upward by contracting your glutes with force until you form a straight line between your shoulders, hips, and knees without hyperextending the lower back. Hold the contraction for 1 to 2 seconds at the top before coming down with control. This brief isometric contraction at the top also trains the spinal erectors to remain stable, which directly reflects in less lower back fatigue throughout the day. An extra tip is to position your heels closer to your glutes, as this directs more work toward the gluteus maximus and less toward the hamstrings. If you feel your lower back working more than your glutes, you are probably lifting too high or not engaging your core enough during the movement. A common mistake is keeping the feet too far from the glutes, which transfers much of the effort to the hamstrings instead of the gluteus maximus. Another mistake is pushing the hips beyond the straight line, arching the lower back too much in an attempt to gain more range of motion. 3 to 4 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions are recommended, and you can progress by increasing the pause time at the top from 1 to 3 seconds. People with a herniated disc in an acute phase or intense lower back pain when arching the spine should perform the movement with a reduced range of motion and always under professional supervision. Exercise number 4, frog pump. The frog pump may look strange at first glance, since you end up with the soles of your feet together and your knees open out to the sides, but this position is not random. It places the hip in external rotation, which significantly increases gluteus maximus recruitment during the movement. To perform the exercise, lie on your back, bring the soles of your feet together, and let your knees fall out to the sides as if you were doing a lying butterfly stretch. From this position, raise and lower your hips in a short, controlled range of motion, maintaining glute contraction throughout the entire movement without fully touching the ground between repetitions. This exercise intensely works the gluteus maximus with a much lower risk of lower back overload because the reduced range of motion prevents you from compensating with spinal hyperextension, a very common mistake in the traditional glute bridge when poorly executed. For those who feel discomfort in the lower back during other glute exercises, the frog pump is often a great entry point. An extra tip is to maintain a light, constant tension in the glute, even at the lowest point of the movement, without fully relaxing. This keeps time under tension high and enhances muscle recruitment throughout the entire set. A common mistake is opening the knees beyond what hip mobility allows, which creates discomfort in the groin area without providing any extra benefit for the glutes. Another mistake is performing the movement too quickly, losing the mind-muscle connection that is essential in this particular exercise. 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions are recommended, since this is a short range of motion movement that responds well to higher volume. People with hip injuries, femoroacetabular impingement syndrome, or groin pain when opening the legs should avoid this exercise or significantly reduce the knee opening and seek professional guidance before continuing. Exercise number 5, single leg Romanian deadlift. The single leg Romanian deadlift is, in my opinion, one of the most complete exercises on this list because, in addition to intensely working the gluteus maximus and the hamstrings, it demands a high level of proprioception and balance, since it is performed while standing on one leg. When you include this exercise in your routine, you are training the entire posterior chain in an integrated way, something that isolated exercises like the glute bridge cannot replicate on their own. This means greater stability for running, going up a hill, or simply walking longer without feeling your hip tire out. This is especially important because the body rarely uses a single muscle in isolation during daily life. It works together with stabilizers of the hip, ankle, and core. To perform the exercise, stand on one leg with a slight bend in the supporting knee. Hinge your torso forward, pushing your hips back, while your free leg extends behind you, maintaining a straight line between your head, torso, and elevated heel. Lower until you feel a stretch in the hamstring of the supporting leg without losing spinal alignment, and then return to the starting position by contracting the glute at the top. An extra tip is to keep your gaze fixed on a point on the floor in front of you throughout the entire movement. This helps maintain balance and cervical spine stability. If balance is a challenge at first, you can lightly touch your fingers to a wall or chair until you gain confidence in the movement. A common mistake is rounding the spine during the descent, which removes tension from the hamstrings and unnecessarily overloads the lower back. Another mistake is bending the supporting knee too much, turning the movement into a squat instead of a hip hinge. 3 sets of 8 to 10 repetitions per side are recommended, always prioritizing control over speed. People with serious balance issues, frequent dizziness, or acute hamstring injuries should avoid this exercise until those issues improve, and may temporarily substitute it with the bilateral version using both legs for support. Exercise number 6. Sumo squat. The sumo squat is a variation of the traditional squat with the feet placed much wider apart and the toes pointed outward. And this simple change in stance makes an enormous difference in gluteus maximus activation because it places the hip in external rotation throughout the entire movement. Electromyography research consistently shows greater glute activation in squats with a wider stance and external hip rotation compared to the traditional squat with parallel feet, which makes the sumo squat an excellent choice for anyone looking to prioritize this region. It is worth noting that the gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body, and training it with a compound exercise like the sumo squat, which recruits multiple joints at the same time, tends to generate a high caloric expenditure even after the workout is over, an effect known as excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. This is one more reason for men not to neglect this muscle group, something that unfortunately is still very common in gyms. Including this type of movement in your training also helps preserve hip mobility as the years go by, something many people only realize they have lost when it is already too late. To perform the exercise, stand with your feet much wider than shoulder width apart and your toes pointed outward at approximately 45 degrees. Lower down by flexing your hips and knees at the same time, keeping your torso upright and your knees aligned with the direction of your toes until your thighs are parallel to the floor or close to it. Push back up by driving your feet into the floor, squeezing your glutes at the top of the movement. An extra tip is to imagine you are pushing the floor outward with your feet during the upward phase. This helps keep muscle recruitment focused on the glutes and inner thighs. A common mistake is letting the knees cave inward during the upward phase, which reduces glute activation and increases stress on the joint. 3 to 4 sets of 10 to 12 repetitions are recommended, and you can progress by gradually increasing the time under tension during the eccentric phase of the descent. People with hip injuries, active sports hernia, or significant groin pain should reduce the width of their stance or opt for another squat variation. Exercise number 7, donkey kick. The donkey kick is a familiar exercise for anyone who has ever looked into glute training, and you may have even done it without knowing the name, since it appears in practically every functional training class. The playful name comes from the movement resembling an animal kicking, but the effect on the gluteus maximus is very serious. It is one of those simple exercises that, when performed correctly, delivers results that seem disproportionate to the effort they appear to require. Unlike the fire hydrant, which works lateral movement, the donkey kick focuses on hip extension, pushing the leg back and upward, which generates a maximum contraction of the glute precisely at the top of the movement, the point where most people feel the muscle working the hardest. To perform the exercise, rest on your hands and knees with your spine in a neutral position. Keeping your knee bent at approximately 90 degrees, drive one foot toward the ceiling, extending the hip until you feel a strong contraction in the glute without arching the lower back to gain extra height. Lower with control until the knee nearly touches the ground again. An extra tip is to pause for 1 second at the highest point of the movement, squeezing the glute firmly before coming down. This considerably increases muscle recruitment during the concentric phase. You will know you are doing it correctly when you feel your glute burning before your back or shoulders start to tire. A common mistake is using the lower back to gain extra range of motion, arching the spine instead of keeping the movement isolated at the hip. Another frequent mistake is swinging the leg with momentum instead of controlling the movement throughout the full range. 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions per side are recommended, and you can progress by increasing the pause time at the top or gradually adding more repetitions. People with lower back pain when resting weight on their hands and knees, or with recent wrist injuries, can adapt the support position to rest on their forearms to reduce pressure on the joints. Exercise number 8, side-lying leg raise. Closing out this list, we have the side-lying leg raise, an exercise that looks simple but is extremely efficient for working the gluteus medius and the gluteus minimus, muscles that are small in size but fundamental for hip stability during walking and other daily activities. When these muscles are weak, it is common to notice the hips swaying from side to side while walking, which overloads the knees and the lower back over time. Strengthening this muscle group is one of the most direct ways to improve lateral stability and prevent pain related to this imbalance. Think of the gluteus medius like the hinge on a door, small compared to the rest of the structure, but essential for everything to move without squeaking or falling out of alignment. To perform the exercise, lie on your side with your legs straight, one on top of the other, resting your head on your arm or on a pillow. Lift the top leg while keeping the knee extended, raising it as high as you can without tilting the hip backward, and then come back down with control without letting the leg fully touch the other one between repetitions. An extra tip is to point your toes slightly downward during the upward phase, as if you were trying to step on something in front of you. This helps direct the work more effectively toward the gluteus medius, rather than the quadriceps or tensor fasciae lati. Remember that the range of motion does not need to be exaggerated. What matters is the quality of the contraction. A common mistake is tilting the hip backward during the upward phase, which removes tension from the gluteus medius and makes the movement appear larger than it really is. Another mistake is lifting the leg too quickly and losing control on the way down, which is precisely the phase that generates the most results. 3 sets of 15 to 20 repetitions per side are recommended, and you can progress by increasing the time under tension on the way down or gradually adding more repetitions. People with active hip bursitis or intense lateral pain when pressure is applied to that area should reduce the range of motion or seek professional guidance before continuing. We have reached the end of our science-based glute exercise list. At the end of the day, you do not need to do all of them every week. Choose 2 or 3 that made the most sense for your body and for the space you have available at home, and stay consistent. It is the repetition over the weeks, far more than the intensity of a single workout, that builds strong glutes and protects your back and knees over the long run. If you enjoyed this and want to discover the best exercises to address that stiffness affecting your mobility, we have a video appearing on screen right now showing each of them in more detail. I do not see anyone else talking about this, so make sure you check it out. Thank you for watching all the way to the end, and may God bless you, my friend.